Howdy friends, I'm Remington. Welcome. So today we're finally going to be talking about Mistborn. It's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to it forever. And it took me about 3 weeks to get through it, through late December to mid-January. But I had a really good time with it, so I'm looking forward to talking about it today. I'm going to separate it a little bit into two parts, a non-spoiler part and a spoiler part. I'm not going to be talking too much non-spoilers, but still, if you want to just skip ahead to the spoilers, you can just skip to this time code. Anyway, for anyone who hasn't heard of Mistborn, it's basically Brandon Sanderson's main entry point into his fantasy epic series, The Cosmere. Most people recommend that if you're going to read Brandon Sanderson, you start here. I didn't start here. I started with Tress of the Emerald Sea, and I loved it, although I have been told that it does kind of spoil or at least allude to a lot of things that happen later in different series and books. No regrets though. I had a great time with it. It's one of my favorite books, so very happy that I started there. Before I went into Mistborn, I had a little bit of an idea about what it was. I had heard that it's a fantasy heist set in a kingdom where basically evil won, and that metals are the source of magic in this world. That was pretty much all I knew going in, and I try to keep it that way for a lot of books because I really don't like spoilers. So even as I'm just giving a description of Mistborn, I'm going to be pretty coy with everything and try and just give you the vibe so you can see if it's kind of the right thing without really giving you too much of an idea of what to expect. So the setting is pretty standard fantasy, kind of medieval world. The only exception is that the evil guy completely won, and now he's ruling the entire world. The book seems to be at least loosely inspired by the French Revolution in terms of how the populace is treated and how they are reacting to the situation that they're finding themselves in. And the plot basically revolves around a group of thieves who are trying to get one over on this kind of tyrannical government. Our main character's name is Vin. She's a young girl. She's 16 at the start of the book. And she's an orphan who's just kind of been bouncing between thieving gangs her entire life and trying to basically just stay alive. And eventually, because of something that's a little bit special about her, she gets mixed up with the thieving crew who we're going to be following for the rest of the book. Mistborn is very much carried by its plot and its magic system. Those are by far the two strongest things about the book. The plot is structured in such a way that the first half of the book is a little slow. It's not that it's boring or unfulfilling. It's just that in the first 300 to 350 pages, not too much happens, and because it's a 650 page book, you kind of feel like you've read a whole book and not a lot has happened, so it feels a little unfulfilling in that sense. But then it really pays you back for all that upfront investment with the second half of the book. The entire way through, Brandon Sanderson's just laying the scene for what's to come. And the magic system is a pretty hard magic system. You're told a lot of how it actually works, and you feel like you have a pretty good understanding as you gain more knowledge throughout the book about how the people who use it are able to use it and their limitations. There's always more secrets to learn, but you have a pretty good idea of what people are going to be capable of. The way that the magic weaves its way into basically every part of this book, it is the main character of the book, really, is the magic system in here. It is so cool. It is so cool. There's a lot of just amazing scenes, specifically the fights that come out of the magic system and the things that they're able to do with it. I also want to quickly mention the characters. There's one or two characters that I think are pretty good. None of them are amazing. Most of them are kind of meh. Not in I didn't like them. I liked pretty much all the characters in the book. But I don't think that they're particularly strong characters, save maybe one or two. For the most part, they do their job carrying the plot, and they do it fine. But I don't care too much about any of them. I really wanted to see a lot more from the side characters, too. I liked them a lot, it's just that they weren't really used too much. The whole book has a kind of young adult feel, kind of in the same realm as something like Red Rising. Maybe a little less brutal, though, because Red Rising can be pretty brutal. But it's definitely more mature than the first few Harry Potter books. Like maybe we're getting into like book 6 or 7 levels of maturity of Harry Potter, to give you some kind of example. So altogether, for the spoiler-free part, very good. Would highly recommend it. Just know that the pacing of the first half is a little bit off, but it's gonna pay you back in the long run. If you are motivated by a good plot and a good magic system, you're really gonna like this book. If you're going in it specifically for characters, you'll probably be a little disappointed. I don't know, maybe in the second and third book, the characters will be fleshed out quite a bit more. I hope that that's what I'll see, but I haven't read them yet, so I don't know, and I can't tell you. Anyway, that's all that I have to say without spoiling anything. So if you haven't read it and you want to read it, now's your time to leave. For everybody else, let's talk spoilers. First of all, I just want to say, I found Kelsier so annoying. I did not like him. I think that he's a really good character. Like, he's the one character in this book who I think really carries it. Everyone else is kind of meh. Vin's okay. Sazed's great, but he's kind of off to the sidelines. But Kelsier, he's the one character that really needed to be strong, and he is. I just found him really annoying in his personality, in the way that he goes about orchestrating the plot. He feels like Dumbledore or like Princess Bubblegum, where like he's doing the right thing for the right reasons, but in a sleazy way that feels dirty. Just like he's manipulating people and not letting them in on the full story and the full scope of the plan. And that just feels gross to me. Ultimately, of course, it works out for him, and he accomplishes what he needed to accomplish. And I commend him for that. But the way he went about it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. He may be the good guy, but he's not the hero. I'm not trying to say necessarily that he even did anything wrong. I just didn't like the way that he felt like he had to go about doing things. Like, if I were Ham, the scene in the cave where Kelsier orchestrates the fight between the soldiers, that was so gross. I really didn't like Kelsier after that. He's so manipulative. And, like, of course he got lucky with how it turned out. And not all of that's luck, because he's a very skilled Mistborn, and he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, if something had gone wrong, that could have caused a lot of problems. Like, yeah, part of his character is being reckless. But, like, dude, calm down. He's just such a selfish character. Even when, like, he's doing things for others, like, it just feels like the way he's going about it is just for his own sake. Regarding the rest of the characters, like I said, I like them all, but I don't think that any of them are particularly great. Sazed's very good again. He's just off to the sidelines too much. I love everything about him. The way that he was able to provide exposition without it feeling like just an exposition dump, so great. I love his personality. He's funny. I love the way that he talks, where he always ends things with, I think. I really hope that Sazed has a bigger part in the second book. Vin was fine. She did everything that she needed to do. She had a good little character arc with her finding out that Reen didn't actually betray her, and kind of wrestling with what Kelsier's doing and her own role in things. That was all good. Not great, because like I feel like there wasn't that much growth. I think that Vin's probably going to be a character that we're going to see grow over the entirety of the trilogy. And that's why there probably wasn't a lot in the first book. There was, of course, the stuff with her, like, figuring out, like, who she is and all that. And that was fine. No problems with Vin's character whatsoever. It just didn't feel all that important to me. Or all that great, I guess. The three main side characters, Breeze, Ham, and Dachshund, they're great. I love them. They just barely do anything. I like that we got a little bit of Dachshund's backstory and a little bit of like Ham's story with his family. I would have liked a lot more of that, and to see them actually doing a lot more of what they actually contributed to the heist. I would have liked to see some of their point of views more often. I get why we didn't, because it was already a super long book, but I would have liked to see them be a little bit more involved and a little bit less on the sidelines. I did particularly like the scenes where Breeze was kind of like letting us in on how he performs allomancy. The scene in the hideout where Kelsier's talking to a whole bunch of potential recruits, and Breeze is just like upstairs, like orchestrating things. And then again, during the fight with the Lord Ruler, or like right before the fight with the Lord Ruler, where Breeze is just kind of trying to control the emotions of the populace. Those scenes, loved those, super fascinating. But again, I would have liked to see actually more of who Breeze is as a person. I feel like we didn't get a lot of that for the three characters. Spook was a really good side character. Like, he's barely used, but I did like him. Like, he feels like a good guy to me, and I just wish he were included more. Marsh is somebody who I feel a little bit on the fence about. Like, he's barely included until the very end, and with his death, like, I believed that he was dead, I think. Like, I did notice specifically that it wasn't going into too much detail about, like, the body and everything when they found it. They just said there was Marsh's dead body there, and I was just like, okay, I believe it. So I was pretty astounded when he came back, like, in the last 20 to 30 pages. I don't know how I would have done that differently, but I feel like he was gone for so long and came back so close to the end that it was a little jarring. I think that's a big nitpick from me. But it did feel a little bit strange that he was gone for so long and then came back with such an important role. I do love that he's an Inquisitor, though, and, like, him killing all the other Inquisitors. Even though, like, I do have that small little nitpick about it, it was still an amazing scene that I really loved. The whole Steel Ministry and the Inquisitors, so fascinating, and I want to know everything that there is to know about how they ran things. I just want to know more about the world in general. I wish that we saw more of how the Ska lived. I wish that we saw more of how the society functioned. Like, we get the big picture stuff, but we don't really spend a lot of time with anyone outside of the crew. We don't exactly know what the world's like. And again, it's a 650-page book, so, like, I don't know where you would cram that in, but it would have been nice to see somehow. I also feel like, although the magic system is super cool and I love it a lot, I do feel like it's a little convenient, like a little manufactured. And maybe that's kind of just a hard thing to do with, like, hard magic systems, is to find ways to make it feel organic to the world. But it just feels like the way that you can't pull on metals that are in somebody's body, or the way that some of the metals interact with each other, or like aluminum clears all your metals. It's just kind of like, why do these work in that way? Again, small nitpick. Like, I totally get why they work that way for the structure of the story. It feels very much like it was created to fit in a story and not created on its own and had a story grow out of it, which is fine. It just doesn't make sense why the magic works the way that it does. I do really love the ferrochemistry, though. The whole thing about that, about being able to store up and draw on your resources later, love that whole thing. And I loved that the Lord Ruler was both. And I figured that out, like, as I was reading through the diary. I figured it out as soon as, like, you see the old Lord Ruler in his chambers when Vin's being brought before him. Or not when she's being brought before him, but, like, when she sneaks in there. Like, as soon as you see that, like, it's pretty clear that he's able to do that based off the diary entries that you've been reading. I was a little sad with myself that I didn't figure out that he was the talisman being referenced to in the logbook. That bumped me out a little bit, but at the same time, I feel like it gave me a better payoff of figuring it out at the same time that it was happening. But a little bit disappointed with myself because I feel like I should have been able to piece it together. And I'm not actually asking this question for an answer. Please don't tell me. But I kind of think that Vin is also a ferrochemist. Because obviously, like, she can do some of the same things that the Lord Ruler could do that others couldn't. Is that just because she's a strong Mistborn, or is that because she can also do ferrochemistry? I'm really excited to see the answer for that. And again, I'm not asking you. Do not tell me. The biggest surprise for me was that they killed the Lord Ruler. I didn't think that was going to happen. Obviously, I knew that the whole thing from the logbook with the deepness and all that was going to be something that they'd have to address after they killed the Lord Ruler. So I didn't expect killing the Lord Ruler to be like the crux of the series. But I really did not expect it. When there were 70 pages left and the Lord Ruler still wasn't dead, I'm like, they're not going to kill him here. He's going to probably be killed in the second book, and then the third book will be about handling whatever happens after that. And I was very wrong, obviously. So much happened in the last 30 pages of this book. It's insane. Like, as much happened in the last 30 pages as has happened in the first 300 pages, it felt like. I really thought that they were going to take their time killing the Lord Ruler sometime in the second book, and then either Vin or Kelsier were going to, like, be swept up with the deepness and turn evil. And then whichever Kelsier or Vin, probably Vin would be the one who didn't turn evil, would have to then kill Kelsier and then actually solve the problem. That's what I thought was going to happen. And who knows, maybe Vin could still turn evil. If she does, do not tell me. I'm not asking you to tell me. As far as predictions go for how things turn out, I don't really have any. I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I assume that they're going to go on the same kind of journey as the Hero of Ages in the logbook did, where they go to the Well of Ascension and try and do whatever they need to do with the deepness. But as far as how that's going to turn out, no guesses. The last thing that I really want to touch on is that I constantly thought that Elend was going to die. Every time we went to his POV, I was like, he's dead. This is it. This is his time. Every single time. And I was a little disappointed that I was wrong about that. Elend is fine. I like him as a character because I like that he's, a nobleman trying to shake things up and trying to do what's right. But at the same time, he's just like, he's whatever. He's not, as a person, like, I don't think he's anything special. He's not all that interesting to me. And I really don't get why he's king. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I get that he was in a interesting position where he was willing to make a compromise between the nobility and the Ska, but, like, why were the Ska willing to accept him, and why were the nobility willing to accept him? That I don't understand. Like, there wasn't somebody else who I thought was going to be king after Kelsier died, of course. It wasn't going to be Vin. It definitely wasn't going to be Doxin, Breeze, or Ham, although maybe they could have done some kind of, like, senate between them. And there was no way that it could have been like somebody who had not been introduced yet. That would have not felt right. So there wasn't really anybody else aside from Elend to do it. But still, I don't get why the people around him accepted him. And very, very minor spoilers for the beginning of the second book, because I'm like 60 pages in. I don't like the time gap, the 1 year time gap between where Mistborn, the Final Empire, ends and the Well of Ascension begins. I hate that because I want to know every little detail about what went on and the infights and the power struggles. That is something that I was really looking forward to, and I'm so disappointed that I'm not getting that. Although I do kind of understand, because Vin was 17 at the end of the book and Elend's like 23. So if they had like their little like, oh, I love you thing going on, then that would have been a little sus. So I get why the time skip was there, as well as like that's just stuff that's hard to write about, and maybe not everybody would be as interested in it as I am. But still, I was disappointed not to see that. Overall though, I loved the book. The first half, I was enjoying it, and I really, like, I was anticipating it ramping up in the second half. When I was about halfway through, I was like, if it doesn't ramp up at all, this is going to be a 3.5 star book. I was enjoying it, but it wasn't amazing. And then when I got to the end, I was like, this is, wow. I was blown away. I was like, 5 stars. I sat with it for a couple days, thought about some of the things that I've mentioned here. It was like 4.5. And as I sit with it a little bit more, because it's been like 2 weeks now, I think, since I finished it, I think I'm going to demote it down to 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it. I just think that the high that the last 30-ish pages gave me, that last 30 pages was 5 stars, but the first half was 3.5, and then the next 200 pages after that were like 4-star territory. So I think it averages to about, but somewhere between 4 and 4.5 is where I feel right putting it. I think that there are some things that could be improved, and again, it's laying the foundation for a trilogy. As long as the writing quality is kept at the same level, I think the next books can only be better with the foundation that's been laid. And that's what I'm hopeful for. So yeah, that was my thoughts about Mistborn. Another thing that I will say before I go is that I was kind of expecting something a little bit more grand, a little bit more epic fantasy. This was very nice. It was big. I feel like a lot was going on, and of course it's a long book, but I'm craving something that's a little bit more, I don't know, an epic campaign, I guess. Like, I was really looking forward to a really large battle between the ska populace and the guards in the city. Like, I was looking for a large battle that we didn't really get. We got like a really nice battle in the inner city with Kelsier and the Inquisitor and everything going on there, but we didn't get a war, and that's what I wanted. But I'm kind of anticipating that that's gonna be happening in the second book. So again, maybe not that fair of a criticism since it is a trilogy. Anyway, that's all that I have to say about Mistborn as of right now. Excited to continue with it, and excited to come back and talk about the Well of Ascension when I finish that. I'll probably take a little break between the Mistborn trilogy and either Stormlight Archive or Warbreaker. I don't know which one I'll read next. Just to read probably some other fantasy and sci-fi series, as well as standalones. I don't want to dive headfirst into Brandon Sanderson right now, although I am liking what I've read from him so far. Just hearing the reception of Wind and Truth has just made me want to back off a little bit. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, different things that you noticed that you think that I missed, that kind of stuff in the comments. I would love to hear it and love to talk to you about it. Leave a like if you liked. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. I'd love to have you around. Book recommendations are always welcome, although I might not get to them for quite some time. And I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.